when we sold that original 6-book People Series contract, a book about Cahokia was one of them, and that's People of the River. And when we wrote that, we did the actual research for it in 1990, 91, wrote it and published it at the end of 1992. At that point in time, people were still baffled by Cahokia. There had been very little work done on anything except the Central Mounds. So Kathy and I went out on a limb. We had some of the archaeologists at the time were saying, well, it wasn't even occupied year round. It was just a seasonal ceremonial center where people came out of the forests and did their things and then went right back into the forests again. And Kathy and I were looking at the stuff that was coming out of the ground and looking at the whole layout of the thing and saying, no, this has got to be more than that. So we went way out on a limb when we wrote People of the River and wrote it as a state level society. Well, what happened after that was they passed a whole bunch of cultural resources legislation, especially in Illinois, as well as some in Missouri. And they did the I-270 project, which was a big belt loop road that went around the area. And lo and behold, every place that the archaeologists put a shovel in the ground or were monitoring a bulldozer scraping, they kept coming up with archaeological site. Okay, for the people out there who don't know, Cahokia is the largest urban complex in North America prior to the arrival of the Europeans. It's a huge, think in terms of a metroplex that probably had as many as 200,000 people living in the American bottoms and under what is now modern day St. Louis. Cahokia is a series of over 160 different mounds, including Monk's Mound at the central Cahokia site, which is a 10-story earthen structure that covers almost 14 acres. I mean, it's the largest earthen structure on the planet prior to mechanization. And when this was built, we had people who overnight picked up from a 6-state region, picked up their villages and all of their belongings and came to Cahokia to build this incredible city over about a 30 to 40 year period. It's all surveyed. The Grand Plaza was leveled and then surveyed well enough that it had drainage for when it rained. And then Cahokia becomes to North America as Rome became to Europe. It has that kind of, so now we talk about Imperial Rome, or Imperial Rome, we do, but we also talk about Imperial Cahokia. It's that big of a thing. So when we wrote that first book, published People of the River in 92, by the time we get to the not 2020, 2019, our understanding of Cahokia has grown by leaps and bounds. So there's good news, bad news with People of the River. The good news, or let's start with the bad news. It's always better to start there. The bad news is the Cahokia that we wrote as a state society is no longer a valid concept. The good news is that prior to the astronomical event in 1057, old Cahokia kind of reflects what we did in People of the River before all the cities were torn down and this whole big thing is built. But it's one of those instances where, as archaeologists, we went to the publisher and said, hey, look, what we've found out about Cahokia is so startling and so changing. We really need to write this as a little mini series within the People series itself, because it's stunning. It changes everything that happens in North America. When the Europeans finally arrive in 1492, the 5 civilized tribes are all descendants of Cahokia. So yeah, People of the Morning Star is it's a thriller set in Cahokia using our best understanding of the iconography and how the people believed and what happened. Okay, remember earlier when we were talking about the Iroquois books with the Peacemaker series? We're talking about reincarnation. And this is such a central feature to pre-European North American Eastern civilizations and cultures. What we think happening, why did all of these hundreds of thousands of people just pick up and move there? And we think the best hypothesis that we have, by a guy by the name of Tim Pocketat, who really put this all together, great archaeologist, is that we think that they reincarnated the Morning Star. And Morning Star to them is one of the hero twins. This is one of the boys who goes into the underworld to play chunky with the giants who had killed his father. I mean, this is big stuff. In their culture, just every bit as important as Jesus is in ours. And we think that they reincarnated him. And so that's of course what those first five novels are about. For the Cahokia books, that's it. And that carries that character arc for Night Shadow Star and all of the rest of the characters all the way to the end. Are the authors of 88 books. We have about 18 million copies in print, and we've been translated into 31 languages now. Our latest novel will be released in May 27th of 2025. The title for it is Buffalo Justice, and this is a novel set in the bison industry, a thriller mystery novel that is set in modern American West. Kathleen and I, we raised North American bison at Red Canyon Ranch for 32 years. We were named National Producer of the Year twice by the National Bison Association. And living with bison for 30 years, you really get to understand them and know them. And currently in North America, we have a huge disconnect of knowledge about bison. And this is caused by the conservation community, who, if you go to their sites, they will be happy to tell you that there are only 30,000 bison or buffalo in North America. And that's not true. We have almost 500,000. And they have been making their argument based on what they call genetic purity. And of course, Kathy and I, as both anthropologists, archaeologists, and biologists, have known for years and years and years that there is no such thing. They like to make the claim that, well, yes, but domestic bison aren't really buffalo because they're all impure hybrids that have been crossed with beef. And so much of this didn't make sense to us given our understanding of genetics and the fact that the tests that they were using at the time were so inefficient. And recently, information has been developed by, Beth Shapiro and by Oppenheimer. And lo and behold, they have been testing ancient bison DNA and finding the very same cattle genes that for years and years and years, the purists have said were actually from introgression or inbreeding. So we wrote the novel based on the fact that, hey, Yellowstone bison are not endangered. This is a scam because how do you get people to donate millions and millions of dollars? Except if you can say, well, yeah, these are rare buffalo and they're endangered. So it all hinges off of that. Like everything else, like every other good plot in mysteries and thrillers, it all hinges on money and scams and who's doing what to whom.